So, welcome everyone. Really appreciate that you're with us today. This is an introduction to AAQEP. This is our collaboration and innovation and quality assurance. And this particular webinar is specific for New Mexico. It is covering everything that is in the introduction to AAQEP that we would normally give every month, but it also includes a little bit of a member voice from New Mexico and also our colleagues who are from New Mexico Public Education Department. So I don't have Karen with me today. She'd be the person as normally your director of member services, but I do want to call out that we have Sungdi Shu with us today. Sungdi is our chief relationship officer, and so he helps us a great deal integrating the work with the members and the partnerships with the states and a lot of other things that I could not even begin to tell you. I am Linda McKee. I'm the Chief Operations Officer, and along with Sungdi and our president, the three of us are labeled as our co-founders for AAQEP. We have Chris Curran with us, who's the New Mexico Public Education Department. She's going to speak for us in just a couple of minutes. We also have Jesse and Reed with us, who are from Central New Mexico Community College. So I'm happy to have them join us today, and they'll give us a little bit of insight about their experiences with AAQEP also. So welcome to all of you, and I thank you all for joining us. If you have questions, please enter them in the chat box. I will say that I will stop the recording at the end, and I will stay on and answer any of your questions that may be something a little more sensitive you may not want in the chat box, or maybe they just bubble up and we want to talk about them in a little more detail. So either way is good. The agenda today is I'm going to talk about the value of accreditation very briefly, because I imagine the majority of people who are on here have a pretty good idea about the value of accreditation, but I'm going to give you a little overview about that. Then I will talk about the AAQEP approach, and how we thought about it as we brought in a lot of people talking about what we could do for accreditation and quality assurance. And from there, I'll move into the expectations framework. I'm going to do a very fast overview of the 4 standards and all their 7 aspects each, intentionally rapid so that we have time to hear from other people, but also because they are in our guide in much more detail. So I'll give you that reference in just a few moments. I'll give you some insight about our AAQEP community and hear from our member voices again with that. And then I'll just give you some hints about how to get started, which is technically contact me. So we'll move forward with that. So the value of accreditation, we all know that it does strengthen programs. We really want to show this, improve this with our quality assurance process. It's extremely important to us that we do have a structured review process so that we can do our research also about the quality of our own process. But the intent of this is to really improve the process of the providers who are preparing our teachers and our educators. We also know that it's a great way to share practices. It's a collaborative process, and it really gives you an opportunity to have those conversations with other people. It's a good way when you, especially if you're a reviewer, you can gain professional development, and that's extremely important about how to look at other programs and maybe consider how other programs are presenting information. But it gives you a chance to talk with other people about accreditation and quality assurance. It builds strong stakeholder relationships through that data sharing, but it also helps to engage stakeholders, bring them into a part of the whole process so that they can really help you to improve program effectiveness. Hearing from other people exactly what it is that they need, what we need, what your community needs in order to build those teacher education and educator preparation programs. And then the last piece, accreditation is one of the ways to get that third-party validation. It does help a great deal to always have that other eye. We know that. We do it all the time as educators. But this is a great opportunity to have other people telling us, well, this worked, and maybe we want to consider, revising this one a little bit. But a fantastic opportunity for that through accreditation. And we always have at the forefront, and I know that you do also as educators, always ensuring that we are putting effective educators in this schools and communities for our students. So I think that's incredibly valuable, and that started the professional conversation for AAQEP. When we started this, we really were looking at, what does it really mean to have quality assurance? And the first question that came up is, well, first, how do you define it? I mean, that's the first thing you have to do at all points. And what are its dimensions? And so we did have this conversation thinking about that and realized that, okay, well, how is it defined? How is that identified? How is it measured? How is it recognized? And we wanted to be sure that we were not specifically telling people this is AAQEP's way of doing it. We wanted you to be able to defend how you are doing it and give the evidence of your program and process. And I'll talk about that in just a moment as I get into your context and mission. But at all times, we really thought about, well, we're approaching this from an improvement science perspective. So how can the quality, the effectiveness of your program be increased or improved? And what would be your evidence or even your plan to do that based on your data analysis? And of course, with any improvement, you have to have the flexibility to be innovative. Yeah, maybe this is working, this is not. Improvement science, we say adapt, adopt, or abandon. And I always laugh about that because many times in education, we forget about that last one, to abandon. We just keep adding more and more on. So how do we know that what we're doing is effective? And do we need to make any adaptations or any revisions or abandon it? So that's the innovation. What can we do? And what is innovative to me or to Sungdi or to Chris may not necessarily be something that is innovative to you, or you may have something that we don't realize, or that we maybe I've already seen that before. But it's what is innovative to you and to your program, and you'll give the evidence of that. And that really underscores our AAQEP approach. We brought together a group of about 45 to 50 professionals. They were deans, faculty members, P-12 educators, and state education agency staff and representatives. We brought them together in 3 different working groups. So the first working group was about the expectations, and they're the ones who designed the standards and the evidence, and that would have been the 2018 standards and evidence. The second working group, Songdi worked with this one, that was the process group. They looked at maximizing collaboration and learning. In Baltimore, and in the spring of 2018, we brought together a group of about 100 people. And Songdi and some of our other members helped us to really coordinate, some conversation about what does that process look like? What is it that you in the field want that process to look like? And what are those key components? And so we used those and helped to design that process. And the third working group was about consistency, because we wanted to ensure that there is consistency and transparency across the entire process. This process, as I'll make note in just a moment, it's open to a large, very diverse group of providers. And so with that diversity, we need to ensure that we are being consistent with what we're doing for everyone so that we have that fairness integrated deeply into our process. This is AAQEP's vision and mission. I will mention to you that I think it's pretty straightforward. I don't think that there's anything that would be a surprise to you on this, that, it is committing to the evidence, for improvement, engaging in the P20 system, and holds high public confidence. That's one of the key pieces in our vision of how do we kind of turn that mindset just a little bit, so that we can improve what is happening, the things that are happening in the field at this moment even, and nationwide, so that we can really ensure that we do have the confidence of the public with the educator preparation programs and the candidates that they're providing. And then, of course, the mission is very straightforward. I think that, to strengthen the education system's ability to serve all students, and to do so equitably. So I think those are pretty common. We did have 8 design principles when we first started as a startup, and we have been fortunate enough to stay and be able to switch those to operational principles. And the very first one is collaboration. We consider that breaking down the silos that have kept us all locked into these spaces where we didn't have an opportunity to really have good communication with each other and learn from each other. We really thought that was the top important point. And we're going to talk about that a little bit, and I think you'll hear from our member voices about the value of some of that. So collaboration rather than competition, and thinking about that internally with all of our colleagues. I mentioned about innovation being very integral to the improvement science. I'm not really positive that you could have a really in-depth improvement cycle without innovation. And so we think that that's extremely important. And again, what is innovation to you is what we're looking at. The partnerships, and you heard that, Songdi is with us. He's our Chief Relationship Officer. He works with the partnerships with our states, works with partnerships with our national organization, And he feels that it's very important that we're all talking and working together. This is something that, we have those MOUs that really give us some guidance on that. But even without the MOU, it's extremely important that we do have those conversations and we understand each other on what we're doing to move forward and to support our providers. It's a comprehensive system. I mentioned a few minutes ago, almost every type of provider that is in the nation, I believe, would be with us at this point. We have community colleges, we have obviously the public and private institutions, we have school-based and district-based and alternative programs. And so we have tried to build a very comprehensive system that is fair to all. The context is one that people bring up to me quite frequently, is that what they're really thrilled about is the fact that we want to hear you and about your context and what you're doing working in your context and the institutional mission of your context. So that's an extremely important piece to us because all of the providers are different. Consistency, I mentioned a few minutes ago, we thought that was important enough that we not only had it in a working group, but we brought it into our operational principles. And all of these principles we see not only as external, but also internal. We try to ensure that we are very efficient in the work we do. We do not have a brick and mortar space intentionally, so that all the funds that we collect go towards supporting, in some way, supporting all of the providers that are our members. And of course, then we do also believe in sharing. We have a couple books that we already have published. We have some others, two other books that are on the books on the books at the moment. That made a lot of sense. Books that are on the books, okay? So, but we also, at every one of our symposiums, the Quality Assurance Symposium for the last couple of years, and again, this will happen this year, we give out a free copy of the most recent publication. So I'm hoping that you'll be able to join us for that and receive that free copy. We are now over 215 members in 36 different states. We also are in a few different countries. So we're in Thailand and Qatar. We also have a couple of our territories, the U.S. territories, that are members with us too. So you can see it's kind of scattered around the nation a good bit. So having said that, I'm going to be quiet for just a moment. Jesse Reed, this is where I will ask you to jump in and maybe respond to this question very briefly, if you would. Why did Central New Mexico Community College decide to join AAQEP?
Yeah, I'll jump in first and then Reed can come in there too. One is because I ran into Linda and Sancti at a conference. I think it was AACTE, but we were already thinking about what does accreditation mean really as a means to better our programs. And I think that's like a key piece. And I know Linda's already mentioned this, but we're going through this not to pass accreditation and not necessarily to have any sort of seal on our website or anything like that, but to really think about how can we do the best job that we're doing, identify where we're already doing things well, and have that come from us, right? Like, not that we're not opposed, we're very open to hearing other things and what other people have to say, but we understand our context really well. And so we wanted an opportunity to do an accreditation where our voice was really heard and understood. Reed?
Yeah, I would just add to that that I think the context sensitive accreditation process, just because local context really matters and those contextual considerations are really important. In New Mexico, just in light of the Martinez-Yazzie ruling, the subsequent action plan, and really being able to think about those unique contexts to be able to look at our programs and improve them based off of the core areas that are identified to really address Martinez-Yazzie. So I would say that would be one. And then just in a general sense, I just think philosophically, just we're really looking to uh, identify evidence within our program that's appropriate to like the mission, vision, and context of our program, rather than just sort of looking at metrics to address. And so I think that, as a whole, that flexibility and just the support and collaboration and the overall responsiveness has been really great. The sort of cohort-based review cycles and just really the professional learning network that we've experienced through attending a lot of the AAQEP events has also been really, I would say, positive as well.
I will just add, we have not been paid for our testimony.
Oh, yeah, this is true. Yeah.
We're actually paying for it.
Right, exactly.
Right.
All right, all right. So we'll talk. You're going to be at AACTE with me next week, okay? So we'll talk then. All right. Thank you all so much. No one's been paid for this, okay? All right. So very rapidly, I'm going to go through the expectations framework. This is the standards, 4 standards, the 6 aspects for each, and a little bit about the evidence. I do want to say one thing is that I will, again, continue to talk very rapidly because I know that this information is also available in our guide that's on our website, but I also want to make certain that you have time to hear from Jesse, Chris, and Reed. So I'm just going to skim right through it. And there's the guide, by the way, keeping in mind that you will get this slide deck, so you'll be able to access it, but it's a pretty easy, website there. So this is our 4 square here. And we really look at this. This is for the 2025 standards. Now, you heard me mention, and I referenced the 2018 standards to start with, but we have transitioned to our 2025 standards now. Our bylaws require us to change those standards every 7 years. And so we'd spent about a 2-year process of making those revisions, getting the suggestions out and hearing from people about what it is that we needed to change in the standards. And there are a couple small pieces that have been changed, but they're really very minor. And I think that they've given some more depth to what we are doing. But as you can see this with the 2025 standards, if you look across that top with foundational expectations, standard 1 and standard 3 are things that are extremely common to accreditation, especially in educator preparation. We've been doing standard 1 for quite a few years, quite a long time. This is collecting that data, about what's happening in the program and the success of the attitudes of all the people with us in the program or related to it. Standard 3, again, though, is about the quality program practices, and that is really thinking about the curricula, the faculty qualifications, your data quality processes, things like that in your assessment system. So those are foundational expectations, very, very common across almost all accreditors. But when the group, remember back, we have this working group that designed the original 2018, and they did make a suggestion that maybe we want to put in a few things that could just help us to move forward in the process just a little bit. And so they created some contextual opportunities also. And standard 2 is really looking at what's happening in the program that gets transitioned, ensuring that it is happening when they go into the field. Because hopefully we're not preparing people that then do not follow what our preparations were in any way. So that's really collecting the data for that. And standard 4 is that program engagement, so that we're ensuring that we are supporting our P20 system. So, it's a mutual support there that we're looking at what we're all doing together. As you can see, if you look at the columns, standards 1 and 2 are called the completer performance. Those are the ones that are going to be a lot of quantitative data. Standard 2, you could be pulling in more qualitative research methods also, and just because they are the ones that you either already have in place or you may have a more difficult time collecting without having some things like some focus groups or some interviews or things like that. In the green is the program practice. And you'll find when you're submitting some of this information, it's probably going to be more of the documentation side of that. So there'll be more documentation with standard 3 and with standard 4. Just so that we do have workshops for all of this, helping you to understand this in a lot more detail than what I'm going through at the moment. But the 4 different standards, here we are. Standard 1, completer foundational knowledge and skills. And if you look down through these aspects, I'm not going to go through every single one of them, but you'll see that it's really talking about what's happening in the program, the courses that are being taught, the information that your candidates and completers are learning, what is happening in the program, going right on through to the learning science, the language development, literacy development and acquisition, exceptionalities, educational technology tools and systems, which means not what is being used, but what's being used for learning. And then, of course, the cognitive, social, and emotional growth. And as you see there, it does ask you to go to the AAQEP website for the full language. Standard 2, completer professional growth and adaptability. So talking about relationships with families and guardians, It's nothing for a 21-year-old to find themselves in a room with the parents. And so we are now helping them to understand exactly how to build those relationships and have those communications. B and C both have that flag, that red flag called diverse learners, diverse contexts, etc. And I'll point out that when we say the word diverse, AAQEP is not going to give you any kind of structure or parameters for that. This is where you identify what that means in your program and in your context or for your state. So ensuring that you are meeting those particular needs. International and global perspectives, gathering the evidence through the assessment to inform student learning, professional conduct, and then, of course, the supports for mental well-being, including the impact of trauma, which means that we're helping our candidates and completers to understand and know what to do when this is happening, when this trauma is happening. We're not expecting them to become the counselors, of course, of the candidates, unless they're in a school counseling program. So, Standard 3, quality program practices. We're looking at recruitment, admissions, formative support processes. Recruitment is in there because the best way to recruit is to retain. And so that's tied into some of the other work as we go through also. So recruitment, admissions, who you're bringing into the field, looking at your curricula, especially aligned to relevant standards that would be at minimum the state and AAQEP standards, but you could have other standards that maybe the state requires, could be INTAS standards, could be ISLIC, something along that line, or even if you want to bring in standards from your specialized programs. Then the effectiveness of your evidence-based practices in the program, the quality clinical experiences. We're looking at the effectiveness of those experiences, not just they're being placed and where they're being placed, but how do you know that they are effective experiences? Obviously looking at your effective assessment system for the data quality and everything that you're doing, the whole process for your validity, reliability, fairness for your instruments, and including the trustworthiness for your, if you do quality research methods at all. The internal quality control system, ensuring that you are giving me the exact same opportunities that you are giving Songdi, so that we know across the board that we are all getting a fair shot with this. And then, of course, capacity for quality and institutional commitment. That means that your institution in particular is really committed to supporting you. And how do you know that? By ensuring those resources are available for all of your candidates. Standard 4, program engagement and system improvement. This is looking at partnering with high-needs schools and disparity in educational outcomes. Again, this is where it would be identified most likely by your state. If not, then you could go with the national definition of that. Engaging with partners, so bringing in not just your advisory group, but bringing in other partners, maybe from the community in some way, maybe from the businesses, maybe people from other departments that could help you with this improvement process. Supporting completers career entry. You're going to a conference, maybe you're presenting at a conference. Do you have some people that you could bring them in and really help them so that they are working, toward being successful and getting into that? This is again is that recruitment for retainment. Okay, thinking about it. The best way to recruit is to retain. How do we keep them in the field? That's the same with working with the partners to meet those state needs. Working with the partners to diversify the educator workforce. That really is also talking about your state as partners. We'll keep that in mind. Using publicly available data to inform program improvement can be a little bit touchy for some states, just because some of the states do not offer the same depth as what you receive in other states. And so you'll want to talk about what is it that you do receive. And sometimes it's a little bit surprising, and work with your state department about exactly what available data you do have. And then, of course, meet state or jurisdiction mandates. That's one where you'll definitely give us an idea, and hopefully you have to be, you know that you're state approved, so you'll give us the link or the letter that is showing that you're state approved. But this could also be where you want to insert if the state has anything else that they require that is not addressed within our standards and our aspects. This would be where you would want to attach something, insert something, and that would be covered under the MOA most likely, or MOU, on exactly how that would be handled. But that's just something to take in consideration if the state does request something else that's not already covered under our standards that are addressed here. So evidence requirements and priorities. I always get this question about, how many measures, how long do we have to have the data? We do always ask for multiple measures. at minimum, as we all know, the triangulation. And standards 1 and 2 do require within the standard the multiple perspectives. So each one of the standards 1 and 2 would have met that particular core of multiple perspectives. But one of the areas that we always think is a little bit interesting is the reasonable continuity. Um, I know that with my experience that at the university, I was always getting these changes to the rubrics, changes to the measures in some way, changes to assessments that were being implemented, either from the university, from the program, from the state. It may be that we needed to update something. So what we ask is that you update that when it is needed. It could be that you're doing your data quality process and you realize that you have to change some things within this instrument. So we ask that you do change it. Please don't hold off and wait for that for another accreditation cycle. Go on and make those changes as needed. Well, we want to ensure that you're integrating the most up-to-date information that you need in order to help the candidates when they're going to the field. So make those changes, make those revisions, just explain it to us in the report, all right, and give us the information and the data accordingly. Assessments, as everyone knows, and accreditation, assessments are appropriate to the program. Quality of evidence, I've mentioned a couple of times that investigated and shared your data quality. That would be your validity, reliability, fairness, and then of course for the qualitative, that would be your trustworthiness. And we do have the workshop helping you with that if you need it. Priority given to the direct performance measures, differentiation of evidence. And then this last bullet there talks about clear indication of performance expectations. We do not tell you what those would be. You tell us what they are, and then tell us very clearly whether you met them, did not, what are you going to do one way or the other. So the criteria of success, and just as an example, you have a 5-point rubric on the Likert scale. You have agreed as a program that 4 is acceptable. So maybe you have 80 to 90% who've met at the 4. You give the data, you give us the information, you tell us what you're going to do. Perhaps you only have 70 to 75%. That could be, then you give us an explanation of that. One thing to keep in mind when you have low numbers, you have 2 physics, candidates, and one didn't make it and one did. That's a 50%. So you want to just give us some clear explanation of that. That's fine. Put the low numbers in there also. They will not go in for your public report, but they will come to the accreditation for us. Okay, so it will be kept confidential, of course. So, but make sure that you're giving us the explanation of the criteria of success for each one of your, especially the locally developed instruments. Okay, so I'm going to be quiet for a minute, and I'm going to ask Jesse and Reed, what has been the response at Central New Mexico Community College concerning the standards?
Yeah. I'll start just by saying that it does take a considerable amount of time to really dig into them and think about what they mean. This is not I think any accreditation process, and we're only doing initial accreditation at the moment, really requires us to think about what these standards are. What does it mean in the context of our programs? I think at CNM, we've been here for a long time doing this work. A lot of times at community colleges, you're just responding and creating and developing and implementing and kind of meeting the needs of the community. The standards themselves really ask you to think back and say why and how and when and if not, then where. So I think that's been a key piece for us. It's been a huge learning curve, but I also think we've learned a lot about ourselves and about our programs in the process. So I say the response has been good, but not in a like, someone brought me a Snicker bar good. Like it's like, okay, this is a framework that we can really use. And to your point, Linda, one thing I would add is that because there is the degree of autonomy that we have as a program to kind of inform how we want to assess the work that we're doing, that's also a commitment to really identify. So it's a double-edged sword, and maybe in a good way, right? Is that if you want to be able to have a voice and a say in the work that you're doing and work collaboratively, you actually have to put in a good deal of time to figure out what that means, as opposed to somebody handing you a framework that says this is what you need to do.
Jesse, I'm going to just insert this, and I'm Reed. I apologize for jumping in here, but But what you just said is so important, and I've tried to explain that to people that when you are handed, it sounds really good to have that autonomy, but yes, it does take that extra work because now you are the one making some of this work and decisions and stuff. So it's much easier to do a checklist, believe it or not. Here we are. I really appreciate that you said that. Thank you so much. Reed, I apologize for interrupting.
Oh, not at all. I would just add that to Jesse's point, it's an ongoing process, right? And so because you have really a lot of autonomy and flexibility in terms of what the individual standards mean as a program, it's both exciting because you're collaborating with faculty, but it's also an ongoing conversation. And I think that's really what has led our self-study work that we've done is really the idea that this is an ongoing work and ongoing conversations, and the standards are more of a North Star, so to speak, rather than like a checklist that Jesse described. So that's exciting, but it's also, I would say, a significant amount of work, and it's an ongoing amount of work and an ongoing understanding of what those standards mean in the context of our program.
Great. Thank you so much. All right, Chris, this is where I'm going to ask you to step in for just a couple of minutes and a brief update on New Mexico's plans concerning national accreditation.
I shared with the group yesterday. What I'll share today is that I'm able to reiterate some of the information that was shared with deans and directors in January on requirements for selecting a national accreditor for our EPPs who haven't. Memo was shared mid-January, and the intended date was to identify a national accreditor, one of the two national accreditors shared, by March 1st with the Educator Pathways Bureau. We understand from yesterday that there may be other advantages, and I will follow up, Linda, with both you and Denise to see if there's any flexibility in that, because Linda will be sharing something a little bit later on timelines and membership. And also that upon that beginning that journey with the national accreditor, and we understand some of the timelines depending when you start the process. The memo shares a 2028-2029 school year desire for attaining national accreditation. And we understand that there is some pre-planning that can occur for the proposal, an additional step your EPP may choose and whatnot. So we will remain, does that make sense, in good communication? Does that make sense? If June 30th, 2029, you are like your visits in the fall or something like that, we will certainly remain in communication and support of that. This is for initial teacher preparation. Some of our EPPs have advanced programs. National accreditation requirement is for initial teacher preparation programs. It only refers to that. Earlier this summer, Sung-Ti and I worked on a crosswalk to further really understand what might differentiate any state needs as MOUs are built on a crosswalk between the 2025 in AAQEP standards and aspects. And we'll be seeking some feedback from our partners who are going through the process and have begun on that. And that will help inform MOUs. We've also been working with Sung-Ti on really under our team here in understanding the process in order to support you and this ongoing process. I'd encourage you to forward any questions, concerns that you have to our manager in Ed Pathways, Denise Butel, or myself, or the Ed Pathways team, and we would certainly be glad to support you. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you so much, Chris. Really appreciate your being here. So very briefly, I'm going to talk about the community and about what that means when you're paying your membership dues, and hopefully this is giving you a lot of support throughout this entire process. So accreditation systems, very commonly, they all have a process that includes a self-study. It's the heart of the quality assurance and the improvement process, and they also are reviewed by peers. Most of those peers are doing an either on-site visit or a virtual visit. And I'll talk about the difference with AAQEP in just a moment. The decisions, again, are pretty common across the board whenever you do the research on any accreditor. You're looking at the fact that they are based on a professional judgment for the status, and that status is normally a period of time. It can be either for 5 years or 7 years. And not always, but quite frequently, it does include some identification of either quality issues. Then with AAQEP, we also include some really positive qualifications that we see, some comments and concerns that are comments and I've lost my word again, comments and considerations, something like that. I'm going to think about that, Sunday. Help me. I lost it yesterday also, so this is interesting that I've lost it again today. So anyway, some very positive accommodations. Thank you. So commendations and comments. So we'll talk about that very briefly. But there are 5 notations with AAQEP. Almost always, all accreditors have some types of notations to take into consideration. But things that are a little bit different, we do believe in supporting you as much as possible. And the one way that we've done is by having cohorts. These are monthly meetings. They are regular, ongoing peer collaboration. Anyone within the member institution or organization can join these meetings. And the intent is for you to have an opportunity to speak with other people who are in the same situation, maybe the same timeline, maybe the same type of institution, so that you can ask them questions, and talk with each other. Again, trying to break down those silos that we were first discussing at the very beginning. That cohort will always be supported by a liaison that usually is a staff person, and that will be your person to contact whenever you have some questions. Chris mentioned about the accreditation proposal. We also offer that, and there are different times when that can occur. It can occur when you're first beginning with AAQEP. It can occur throughout the 7-year cycle also, so that you are getting the feedback. It does not lead to an accreditation status, so it does not lead to the decision, but it does give you a lot of feedback, peer-reviewed, and it is virtual, so that you can make maybe some revisions or some changes, or really have some conversations about the measures that you're considering using. So it's a great scaffolding into that process. So Jesse and Reed, I'm going to be quiet again, and this is about your experience with the cohorts, because I know that many people, when they are in the cohorts and they join them, they are thrilled about those cohorts. So I don't know if you both have had an opportunity to join them or not.
Yeah, we have, and it's really helpful to be able to connect with others who are going through the processes, but at different stages. Like we're all, I think, within our cohort, we're generally kind of moving along at the same rate, but we've got people who, when we joined, were just preparing for their site visit, and so that was super helpful. And now that we've moved along, we've got people that are just brand new, and so it's helpful to be able to share that practitioner knowledge, and they're run in a really informal way, which I think is really helpful.
Reed, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
No, I think I appreciate sort of the broader conversation that takes place within the cohort meetings, but then also there's a lot of opportunities for breakout sessions in rooms, to Jesse's point, where you're interacting with a lot of different institutions that are at different places of the accreditation process. And it's really just a helpful opportunity to have an exchange of information. And a lot of conversations have come from those cohort meetings that have extended beyond just the meetings themselves. So it's a great networking opportunity as well.
Great, fantastic. Yeah, they were really designed to be a professional learning community, so I'm glad to hear that you're gaining something from that. Well, at AAQEP, we also have 2 different pathways. You may have heard that Jesse mentioned just a few minutes ago that they're doing the initial accreditation pathway. That is the one that when you are right at the beginning, joining AAQEP, either transitioning from another accreditor or just starting with us for the very first time, you have this opportunity to do the initial accreditation. It is a one-time only opportunity. It does have an accreditation status with it, which means that you would be getting a 5-year accreditation. That hopefully that would, in the positive. We always do a webinar, and we also do a lot of particular webinars on writing the report, but a webinar that is a very general one is coming up in just a couple of weeks. So the other pathway is one that is more common to people. They understand this one a little bit more. It's a 7-year cycle. So once you do the initial accreditation 5-year pathway, you can only transition into the 7-year cycle. Or if you make the decision to do so, you can start with the 7-year cycle. So that one is always a maximum of the 7 years. It is recurring. Once you start with that, you will continue with that 7-year cycle unless you ask for an extension or a change according to state needs at some point. And so this is always an opportunity. We also, sometimes people want to have their specialized programs kind of integrated into their programs a little bit. We do have an opportunity for you to have a program performance review if you want to do that. And so you would reach out to either me or Sangdi so that we could help you with that particular one. But that is, otherwise it's integrated throughout the program. So just a little more information about those 5-year, which we call the initial, and then the 7-year accreditation pathways. So the visits will always include a provider selected local practitioner. This is a person that you select, comes in and becomes a part of the team. They are right there working with the team right from the very beginning in all the meetings with the team. They have had to complete our training to be a team member. They have also had to sign a confidentiality agreement. We have a lot of guidance on our website so that you can help select that person. It usually is someone who is a K-12 practitioner who knows your program well, may even know some of the state dynamics, so that would help you a little bit there. It can be an adjunct or someone who's retired. The key to this is ensuring that they are not on salary with you in any way. So you want to make certain that there's no conflict of interest there. But this local practitioner has become extremely valuable to the teams so that they have a little bit of an insight. And it's really important because remember, we're talking about your context. We want to know your context. And this is the person who can give the team the insight on the context. So extremely important person to have there and to select. It's usually a small team with a small footprint. We do have a schedule that is available for you to look at as a template on our website. We try to control that. The initial is always virtual. And so, that helps a little bit with the timing, but at the same time, we have to be really sensitive to time zones and things like that. So there can always be a little bit of an expanse there if necessary. One of the things that seems to surprise people is that our teams give no judgment and no recommendations. And the reason for that is because I want to come in as your peer. I want to come in as a colleague. I am the one helping you to collect and affirm the evidence. There may be times even when I'm going to mention, well, Jesse, maybe we could use this evidence, to really help support what you're putting in your report. So there, it's that third eye, that critical friend coming in and, helping you to ensure that you are putting forth the evidence that shows the quality of your program. So, and again, they always come to that virtual decision meeting. Even with the 7-year, with all of our decision meetings are virtual. They're usually about 3 months after the visit. They are completely transparent, that you will be invited as the provider. You could bring anyone you would like. The state will be invited. The team lead will be invited. And then the commissioners will have their conversation about what they see from the documents that they've received. Those documents would be the self-study that you've written, the responses to the clarification questions that you have given to the team, and then also the team's report that you will have had an opportunity to review for factual corrections. So all of that will come together. And then the commissioners will ask questions. They almost always still have some clarification questions, and they could ask you as the provider, they could ask the team lead, and at times there may be something from the state level that they would ask also. So it's completely transparent, and the decision will be made right there in front of you. So great opportunity. Here's your timeline, and I'm going to go through this one pretty fast too because there's more detail about this timeline that would be on our website also. But when you join AAQEP, you have the chance to do the proposal. It is optional. You'll talk with me about whether that makes any sense. If you do the initial accreditation pathway, sometimes it doesn't make sense because you're on a fast track moving forward. But I'll work with you on that particular part of it. You'll do either the initial accreditation or the quality assurance report, either one of those. You can submit that 9 months ahead of time for a completeness check. That does mean this, one of the staff members will go through and just make sure that all the components are there, that everything is there, that the links are live, everything like that. But it also is on our website, and so you can do that yourself or have someone external do it to help you. And if you do that, then your final report must come in 6 months prior to the site visit. Now, keeping in mind, by this time, you've already selected that site visit, so you know when that will be. There are a lot of virtual offsite meetings that do occur with the teams. Those review teams will meet to look at the document together, to take some notes, to talk about it, to draft the clarification questions about it. And then they will also meet with the provider so that they have an opportunity to meet you and then maybe to answer any questions that you may have, and also to maybe make some decisions about the scheduling. So that helps a good bit at that time in that meeting. And then the site visit occurs. As I said, initial or would be virtual. The quality assurance 7-year are always on site, so you want to make sure that you're budgeting for that. And then the decision is 2 to 4 months. It's usually about 3 months, I'll tell you that, right in the middle of that. And then, of course, you have the annual report that is due a year after that decision. So having said that, you'll be putting all the information in the accreditation management platform. It is with Weave. It is a company that helps us with this platform. So we're still making some adjustments and adaptations to it, but it is a great opportunity for you to have that shared workspace. So you don't have to work with and deal with the Google documents and things like that so much that sometimes they're difficult for some of our reviewers to get access to them. You can see there's a heat map. You just, click on the particular standard and aspect and section and upload your information and work on it there if you need to. So member support and benefits. It's so interesting. We're always talking about this and people ask me, well, if I pay my dues, what am I getting for the dues? And so I think you just saw some of the things that, you do get as supports, but we also have a lot of other resources. We talked about the monthly cohort calls. We have a full repository of recorded resources, things that over the years we have asked members to help us with, and we've recorded those. We have all of our public webinars are recorded, and then we also have other webinars recorded that I'll talk about in a moment. We also have member quarterlies. We just had one this past week, and that's really where the members are talking about a particular topic where they feel like they have really tapped into something that's important to share. It could be about data quality. We had one that was about global perspective. We've had them about following people into the field, a lot of different things. And they are in our library and that repository of recorded resources for the last 6, 7, 8 years, maybe. So quite a few pieces of information there to help you. So, but the key piece would be the webinar supports. Once you become a member, these are available to you to go in and tap into at any time. They are periodically presented live, so you can join a live conversation with us about those. They are recorded, therefore those recordings are stored and on demand. So, for example, if you have the site visit coming up and you are like, I really need to hear what Sarah Hiller, our Director of Accreditation Services, is talking about again, she's recorded that. And it's a recording there that you can tap into at any time. So you don't have to worry about, who do I contact to answer this question? It's all right there for you. So that's the same with writing the reports, both of those reports, and writing the annual report. So that information is always there and available for you. It's not something that you have to worry about trying to get a hold of someone, waiting for a response, even though I think we're really pretty fast with responses. But sometimes you just need to go in the middle of the night. You wake up at 2 a.m. and you're like, oh man, what are we going to do on that site visit again? And away you go. You can check it out. And here are those other additional resources that we do also, those in-person seminars that I'll list in just a moment. We have consulting that would be also all those seminars, but they're more specific to your particular team. The Quality Assurance Symposium that is going to be in Irving, Texas, right down the road from me. So please come and visit us. All right. That'll be at the end of March. And then we do have the Institute. The difference between the symposium and the Institute is the symposium is a 2-day series of peer-reviewed sessions. They're about 45 to 60 minutes, but it's really looking at our members and some non-members who've been approved for this, because we have an events committee who reviews these sessions and makes decisions about them. And they're about assessments, about accreditation. They may be about AAQEP, but it's a broad professional learning process for you. The Fall Institute is really more about a specific theme, maybe a thread of 2-day workshops. So it's really where you are going to be in with a group of people, normally one staff member, one really well experienced person from the field, and they will be with us, helping us with these particular workshops. They are 2-day workshops. You're in the room the 2 days going through and really digging in deep to a particular area. And of that area, those workshops, these are online. They are 2 afternoons and they're offered 3 times a year. Making the Case for Quality is talking about the standards, the evidence for all the aspects. Ensuring data quality and equity is obviously talking about the data quality and giving you some ideas about how to handle that and work with that. This is a list of the consultation. I can either come out and do an in-person consultation with you. I work with you to design that, but this could be a framework for us. And then we also hold seminars. So it may be that you want to host one at your institute, but then we bring other people in to help to, offset the charge for that. So you can see all of those they're really some pretty good ones, to be honest with you. The accreditation self-study, the assessment systems, data visualization, leading quality improvement and implementation, mapping your quality assurance process, which I'll also make mapping your data quality process, and making the case for reaccreditation. So always available. When you get the slide deck, you'll see that the link is there and available for you also. So, all right. I went through that pretty fast. I apologize. I went through that so fast, Jesse. Okay. So you and Reed, your experience with the supports and benefits offered by AAQEP to your programs.
Sure. I would just say that I would agree that you guys are incredibly responsive. So I think that's one key piece. Like, if we do send out an email, if we have questions, then we're usually hearing back. I'm not promising they'll continue to do this, but within a couple of hours often. And so that's it's very helpful because as we're going through the process, there's always a lot of questions. There's been a lot of, what about this? How do we do that? And so I think that's been really good. We've been to both the symposium and the institute. I went to the symposium, which was great. It's good to hear from other colleagues who are doing stuff, sometimes not necessarily related to the accreditation process, but if you're engaged and interested in what does it mean to make better programs and what does quality, continuous and quality improvement look like in the context of actual programs, it can be really helpful. And it's a great way to network with others. Reed went to the institute, and I'll pass it on to him, but just end by saying that it's not just like, okay, you're going to be accredited by us and we're going to be doing this and here's all the paperwork you need and good luck. There are actually, depending on where you're at and where your programs are, there's a lot of opportunities for engagement and supports across the spectrum.
Yeah, I can speak just to experience at the symposium were great. It was a fairly intimate setting, just a real opportunity to engage with other institutions in a very specific way. So understanding of measures of validity, reliability, just really understanding other institutions' approaches to really setting up how to measure success within their program as it relates to the standards, and then really thinking about data systems and what data looks like and how data is really used to inform continuous improvement in a program. So would highly recommend that experience. It was very insightful. The only other thing I would add would be the access to the resources has been really, I would say, critical in terms of understanding the process of creating the IAR, and the resources are definitely easily accessible. The video recordings that Linda had mentioned are, I would say, concise, and they're also useful and very context specific to the IAR, which we've been working on. So that's been helpful as well.
Great. Thank you so much, because we always want that feedback. We try to continue to improve ourselves also. So we're meeting your needs. Just a little bit of a, note here, Irving, Texas is a beautiful place. It's easy to get to. So I hope that we get to see you soon. How you do join with us? Just contact me. All right. I can just tell you that part right off the bat. L.McKee@aquep.org, and you'll complete the online application. I'll help you with that. And Karen Lowenstein has joined us now. So she's the one who I kind of pass things on to her. Then she'll help you also. and then you get to access the member resources. Keep in mind, to be a reviewer is extremely important. We do need reviewers, and it is a fantastic way to learn about the process. So the link is there if you want to do the reviewer training. We're on LinkedIn. AAQEP's on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. Karen's on LinkedIn. Sunday's on LinkedIn. We're all there. There's our email address again if you need it. And I want to thank you all very much. I'm being very sensitive to the time, but I do want to say thank you so much. I sincerely appreciate everyone being here, and especially our member voices. I am going to stop the recording so that we can stay on for just a couple more minutes, and I'll answer any other questions and maybe check anything that's in the chat box.